anything that increases your blood sugar over a couple of hour period is going to be problematic. So, how do you know blood sugar is a problem? So, one of the first things is over time, your body's going to become insulin resistant. What drives that? Well, one, it's going to be how much carbohydrate you eat. And then two, do you burn it up or not? Right. So, it's a combination of two. The more carbs you eat, the higher your blood sugar goes up. Your body produces insulin, brings it back down. The problem is over time, insulin becomes numb, and eventually that carbohydrate that converts to glucose will eventually stay up after a meal and stay up longer. So my threshold is we want it to be between 140 to 120 on the high side, and we want it back below 120 to 100 within 2 to 3 hours. That's our goal. And so as our blood sugar goes up higher in that first hour and stays up higher, that's a sign that one, you're potentially becoming, hey, Butter, knock it off. My dog's Butter. 1 second. So the higher that blood sugar stays up, the more problems you're going to have, right? Because essentially that blood sugar is either going to get pulled into the cell and burnt up, or it's going to get converted into fat over time. Now, the problem is the longer your blood sugar stays, the more insulin resistant you are becoming, because essentially you should be pulling that into the cell to burn it. Now, also, exercise can help, because if you have blood sugar floating around your bloodstream, you have what's called GLUT4 receptor sites on your muscle that can essentially suck that blood sugar in, that glucose in. And so if I go for a 10-minute walk right after my meal, I can lower my blood sugar 10, 20 points a lot of times pretty easily, just because those GLUT4 receptors are putting their little tentacles out. They're sucking in that glucose, and that is going to make a big difference in lowering that blood sugar. And so ideally you adjust your carbohydrates according to your activity level. Like people out there are like, oh, well, low carb, high carb, ketogenic diets, like it's bad, it's good. It's like, well, first off, just test your blood sugar. Start to individualize the approach for you. What metrics can I utilize that will assess how I'm doing metabolically that give me the ability to fine tune my macronutrients? So, I mean, first thing is, why are you eating the food you're eating, right? My recommended theory is old foods do not cause new disease. So old foods are good, all right? Neolithic foods that are processed, flours, excess omega-6, hydrogenated vegetable oils, excess sugar. These are Neolithic foods, relatively new foods in the last 100 years. So let's stick to old foods, because old foods don't cause new diseases. That's number one. So anti-inflammatory, nutrient dense, and low toxin. Ideally organic, because all food up until 1950 was always organic, because there was no pesticides up until post World War II, where they took a lot of the post World War II manufacturing byproducts from the bombing industry and they convert it into fertilizer. You can go Google that one. And then now we have pesticides post World War II. All right. So now we have to go old foods, right? Do not cause new disease, anti-inflammatory, nutrient dense, low toxin. And then we have to adjust the carbohydrates. And that's going to be based off of genetics, right? Am I prone to being overweight? And my activity level. If I'm doing CrossFit every day, if I'm going on long walks, if I'm doing lifting and I'm putting on muscle, my body's going to be more forgiving in regards to what I can handle for carbohydrates. Again, there'll be genetic individuality there, but you can test it and you can see where your glucose sits and you can adjust the levels for you.